It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It When it happens, it happens. It can happen to anybody.
The aftermath feels like somebody took a jigsaw puzzle and they just shook it up and they took 3 or 4 pieces and threw them somewhere. And you just got to figure out what goes where and find what's missing and hope that eventually it all will make sense.
Any emotion a victim could feel is going to be completely normal because everybody's going to react differently.
So I went and I took a shower and I sat down in the shower for 2 or 3 hours. I can't even remember how long.
I just felt dirty. I felt nasty.
A lot of insomnia.
For the weeks after it happened, I felt like I couldn't breathe.
There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't cry myself to sleep. Or even at work.
I would sit at my desk and I'd just cry for no reason. And then I'd be real angry with myself for crying because I was a chief. I wasn't supposed to cry.
It got to the point where I started having nightmares. It got to the point where I started getting nauseous when I saw him. Pictures of him would freak me out.
I found myself into a deep depression right after.
Over time, it started to eat me alive.
I started trying to commit suicide, and I started cutting my arms.
I had no desire to be around my daughter. She was 10 years old, so she pretty much, during that time, took care of herself, and I would just stay in my bed and cry.
There's a lot of self-guilt that surrounds sexual assault.
They think that it's something about them. Something about them created the assault. Something about them brought it on.
I was confused as to what had happened, how I had let this happen. There was a lot of blame.
I sat there for hours and just analyzed everything. What could I have done differently?
There was some red flag that I missed, or I should have known, or did I mislead him?
I did blame myself for the longest time because if I hadn't tried so hard to make friends, then nobody would have noticed me.
I think at the time I was thinking I put myself in that situation with the drinking and everything and not paying attention to my surroundings.
You look back and you analyze the situation, you analyze stuff that led up to it, and you start blaming yourself for it. It's the predator who's at fault for the entire thing.
It could result in having difficulty with relationships, having difficulty trusting. And I mean relationships as in intimate relationships, friendships, relationships with coworkers, with shipmates, relationships with anybody.
It was a member of my peer group. You know, it was a fellow chief. It just totally destroyed everything that I had believed in and everything that I had come to love. You know, about the Navy, the camaraderie, the security, feeling safe with my shipmates because my shipmates always have my back.
Whenever I walk into a room, I count windows, I count doors. I don't trust anybody.
My trust went out the door, even with my command. That's just how I felt. I couldn't trust anybody.
I hate to say it, but I can't even trust some of the people I work with, and I feel like I should definitely trust the people I work with.
He was my best friend. And so it's like, well, if he was my best friend, and I trusted him, how am I supposed to trust somebody who's not my best friend?
It's been 11 months and I still blame myself.
I didn't drink again until January, and in January, just to be social, I decided I was going to drink with all my friends, which wound up leading to me using it as a coping mechanism.
I've gained 63 pounds. I did a lot of emotional eating. I take 3 meds a day, and those are weight-inducing. I carry shame with that, you know, because you're not supposed to be a fat chief.
I can't go on dates. I've tried to ask women out on dates. It doesn't work. This is block.
One night, my wife said that I was screaming, and she tried to, make me stop. And when she put her hands on me, apparently I jumped out of bed and went to the corner and said, "Please, Frank, don't touch me. Don't touch me." And she didn't have any clue what to do.
Be mindful of the recovery process. because it's not an easy fix, and there's so many elements that have to be repaired. It was a restricted report because I didn't want to I just couldn't handle everybody knowing.
It was originally restricted. I didn't want anybody to know, but at the same time I did. It was, how do you scream for help when you don't know if somebody's going to believe you?
If you wanted to keep it to yourself, I would encourage doing a restricted report. That way you can keep it to yourself, but it's also being reported. And if they do change their mind at a later date, they can change it to an unrestricted report.
I did an unrestricted report, meaning that the command was notified about it. No one should be afraid to report this because no one wants to see you end up in a wind whirl and fall down on your face into some kind of trouble.
The last thing I want to do is talk about it. I don't want to talk about anything. I just want to act like it didn't happen and I'll be fine.
I didn't talk to anybody about it. It just may as well have not even happened.
I just thought if I ignored it, it would go away.
You try to keep in. You try to show that strong side. Not let anyone try and come in and look at it, because you might get judged.
I didn't want to be treated differently or viewed differently. I just didn't want to tarnish who I was.
A lot of times they also feel guilty that they have the potential to ruin the offender's career and or family life.
He's got a wife and 2 daughters. What am I going to do? I don't want to take them from their dad. So I just kept it in.
Men are afraid of how they'll be judged about it.
It's unwanted sexual contact. So why would people think that I'm gay?
I have 3 sisters, and so I've always kind of been looked at as the protector of my sisters. This one time, I fell victim.
I mean, it's just that whole pride thing and masculinity thing.
And I tried to treat it myself. And I know how bad you can fail at it.
I try to handle it on my own. It sucks.
I know the thoughts that can hit your head, and I know the dark places that you can go to.
I kept it inside. I just fought it with alcohol. I tried to dampen it.
If you don't empty out the feelings you have in those compartments sometimes, then they're going to overflow. Or if you try to bottle it up, it's going to explode.
You're going to do it on someone. There's someone you care about, a loved one, a brother, a sister, sister Marine.
If you have the power to come out and to be able to talk to one person, that's 50% of the weight that someone else can carry for you. So why bear it?
There are people who understand, who have been through similar situations, and that you're not alone. And that is so important to find support, whether it's going to see a therapist, being part of a support group, talking to family, friends.
I finally gave up being stubborn and went to counseling. I've been going there for these 2 years. It was helpful. I mean, it still is.
Victim advocates, they're there for that reason. They're there for you to call upon and say, I need to talk.
The UVA, the SARC team down in New Orleans is awesome. Nothing but supportive.
Thank goodness for the SAPR program, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have said anything. I really don't think I would have.
She took my hand and baby steps walked me through everything.
The response was all good. Had I known that I would have been received like that, I wouldn't have suffered for so long. I would have came out sooner.
They helped me put myself back together slowly but surely, yeah.
Sexual assault is never the victim's fault, and it never should be the victim's fault. And it should never be portrayed as a victim's fault.
A lot of people had something to say about it, so I did feel a lot of isolation at the time.
I was a homewrecker. I wanted to take him away from his kids. I just wanted to get away from the command. I was a liar.
So people started talking and started coming up to me, asking me about it, and it's like, look, man, you don't need to know.
It was embarrassing. And of course, for me, being shy, I'm just like, fabulous. Like, great. Everyone knows my entire life.
The division officer that I had at the time was disrespectful, unprofessional. He really functioned as a trigger to my PTSD.
The suck it up, buttercup statements, you just don't know how traumatic the situation is.
Don't necessarily treat them taboo like they have some kind of disease. Rape is not a disease. It's just a terrible occurrence that happens, and you slowly but surely pick yourself up and you learn to move on.
Just not talking to me anymore, not being around me, trying to avoid the situation. I didn't need that at the time. I needed that support system. I needed someone to ask me if I'm okay.
They need to know that you are in their corner and that whatever they need, you got them.
I will never be the same. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing. But I will never be the same person I was.
I want to be the one that people can come to and be like, hey, I relate to you. And I want to be the one who could say, hey, I've been there. It happens. It's terrible. It hurts. It hurts so bad, but you will come out so much stronger.
The more I talk about it, the better I get. And so that's what's helped me shed some of the guilt and shame and to really move forward in my recovery.
I'm still H.N. Pullen. I'm still Blake. I'm not victim. I'm not survivor. That's something about me. That's not who I am.
Be strong and not let it define you.
I think I'm damn good at being a Marine, so I'm going to stick with this.